Morning, class. We're going to talk about economics as our next chapter. We're simply going to go into some of the principles of supply and demand, some of the principles of economics, and the American free enterprise system. And you'll get to know some of the details about that. So let's jump right in. A couple of the things that we're going to focus on are some of the factors of production. We're also going to explain the circular flow of economic activity. You'll see when we get to that basically how economics works within our country and within a free enterprise system. We'll illustrate how supply and demand influence market prices, and we'll talk about two of the different types of economic systems. So let's jump right in. Economics is simply the study of how goods and services are produced and distributed and used within our country, or actually within anywhere, but it's how they're used and produced. Production is the making of the actual goods available for human needs and want. And the higher we'll discuss this a little bit more in class, but production simply is how much stuff is produced and is made available for people. Some of the factors of production. One would be natural. Production involves the following types of resources. One would be natural resources, things that come from the earth, or things that, basically that come from the earth. Oil, minerals, trees, water, those types of things. Labor is a factor of production and is a resource. It's the ability for people to do work. Capital is another, which is that's money. People need money to in order to buy particular either labor or resources, natural resources. And then management. Someone has to be able to make the choices and make the ability to determine how much of a product either needs to be produced or not produced, and of course who gets paid and all that type of stuff. So those are the four factors that really factor into production in our American enterprise system. Another part of the circular flow of the economic activity, part of that is consumption. And consumption is simply the process of us using goods and services, meaning, you buy a candy bar, you eat a candy bar. You buy a car, you use a car. In order to use a car, you use fuel. So you're consuming fuel. Consumption is simply the process of goods and services that have to be produced in order to continue to feed the economic system. A circular flow of goods and services and money takes place within consumers and products. I believe our next screen shows us what that looks like. And let's see, you should be able to see my mouse here. As you can see, you've got consumer spending. That's us buying stuff from the store. And us buying stuff from the store says, oh, you need stuff. Okay, here you go. Here's more of it. And they're going to respond basically to the amount of need or desire that we're giving. Well, what do we do for the stores or for the businesses? Well, we provide the labors and skills to produce those services, and also the industry in turn supplies us with wages and salaries in which we turn around and spend with them. So as you can see, it is a huge circular dynamic that is our economic circular flow of activity. It's pretty interesting when you look at it in this picture. All right, so moving right along. One of the things that is very important in our economic system is the simple concept of supply and demand. Whenever goods and services are bought and sold, this is a market, basically. I don't know if you've ever been to the French market. If you've ever been to a flea market, you can go there and people will buy things from you, or you can buy things from them. But simply in the generic term of things, a market is when things are sold and bought. Supply simply is the amount of goods or services that are available. How much of the particular types of cars. For example,
good morning,
I don't know.
We would like to invite you to
I don't know a whole bunch about these cars, but from what I understand, a Bugatti is a very limited production cars, which means there's not a lot of supply of this type of car out there. Well, being that there is not a whole bunch of supply, then people want it more, so they can charge more. So that's why it's so high. The demand now, even if there wasn't a big supply, If there was no demand for it, then they couldn't charge anything. But demand is the willingness of consumers to spend money for goods and services. So these are all terms that you need to know, but simply supply and demand. As supply goes down, let's say bread, as supply of bread goes down, well, the demand for bread is going to go up because the market is not being satisfied. And then brings in something called competition, which is the efforts of sellers to win potential customers. And that's pretty simple. If I'm going to charge $1.25 for a loaf of bread and someone else is going to charge $1 for the exact same loaf of bread, therefore you have now competition. So the other person may get more sales, may not, depending on other factors such as their service and their location and all those different things. So let's keep moving along. A couple different types of economic systems that we're not going to talk a whole bunch about. We're really going to focus on the free enterprise system, but the centrally planned economy, we're going to pretty much bypass that. But we're going to talk about the free enterprise system in this unit. So let's go in and talk real quick. I'm going to skip over these objectives simply so that we can jump right in. But some of the characteristics of the free enterprise system, one is private ownerships. It's owned by people like you and I. It's not owned by the government. Okay, so the government does not own businesses within a free enterprise system. Now, our free enterprise system works within a government, so the government does have organizations and things that play a part in them, but in a general principle, the government does not own all of the businesses in a free enterprise system. It's the ability for private citizens to own businesses. And there's something that's called a profit motive. A profit motive simply is, that's my reason to run a business, is to make a profit so that I can live, I can feed my family, and those types of things. Within a free enterprise system, you have competition, and this fuels the free enterprise system. And I've mentioned yesterday in class, one of the things, why do we need small businesses? Well, we need small businesses because they supply competition. So competition supplies higher prices, higher competition, higher customer service. All of those things fuel our economy, fuel the free enterprise system. Now, one of the things that starts to hurt a free enterprise system is a monopoly. And that's when a business has complete control over the supply of the product or service. We'll talk a little bit more about this in class, but Bell South used to have that. They used to be the only phone company when people ran phones to their house. They didn't have cell phones all the time, so people ran cell phones to their house, ran phone lines to their house. Well, Bell South was the only company that you could buy that from in the South. And so that was a monopoly, and the government broke them up, and now there's all these other different companies out there. So we'll talk a little more about that, but one of the other things you have in a free enterprise system is simply the freedom of choice to either be in business, not be in business, to buy or not to buy. You cannot be forced to buy a particular product, which if we start to look at some of the trends in our government now, are we going away from a free enterprise system, or are we moving towards a free enterprise system? When you look at things like Obamacare, where you are forced to have health insurance, okay, is that a good thing, a bad thing? And we'll talk a little more about that, but freedom of choice is something that is a very strong characteristic of the free enterprise system. Patterns of an economic growth. Now, we see this, and you probably have seen this in the past 8 years or so of your life. The period of expanding economic growth is known as prosperity. When the economy is doing good, when businesses are open, when people are getting jobs, that's called prosperity. We're doing good. When the economy is in a downturn, meaning we're not doing so great, it's called a recession. People are losing jobs, businesses aren't opening up as much, you're not getting paid as much, and there's not much availability for you to maybe pick up work or to improve your status as a person. And that's called a recession. A depression is one step further. It's really bad. That's basically the market has become stagnant in business activity. There's no businesses opening, and then it's very, very difficult for people to better themselves. A term called inflation is something that's in the free enterprise system. It's good and it's bad, but it's a reality. When prices of goods and services rise sharply, this is called inflation. Some of the factors that contribute to inflation: excessive consumer demand. You know, hey, if there's if everybody wants the new Tickle Me Elmo doll, guess what? The people who make the Tickle Me Elmo doll are going to charge more. That's bottom line. That's what it is. Government spending and deficits, and that's part of the inflation. Meaning, if the government is not funding different parts of basically, let's just say our roads, then we need to go more towards a local tax, which is going to cause people to have to raise the cost of their goods and services in order to pay for the taxes that the government is inflicting, or that we're having to make up as private citizens on different sides of taxes. So a deficit is how much money is being spent over budget, or over what has been taken in. And that's what I mean, is that if we're not taking in enough taxes to keep our roads, or to pay for the welfare system, or to pay for Social Security, then the cost of the goods have to go up in order for us to basically pay more taxes to fund those types of situations. So some of the other things that influence inflation is increased energy costs. Okay, that's pretty much common sense. If the light bill is going up, then I've got to make up the cost of this somehow to pay for it. I'm going to have to raise the price of my goods or services. Decreased productivity, meaning if I've got untrained workers that aren't working very good, if I've got not enough workers, I can't produce as much of the product that I need to sell, then I'm going to have to raise the price, because I have a break-even point that I have to meet, meaning I have bills I have to pay, and if I don't pay them, then I'm going out of business. Government regulations, one is the Obamacare situation, or the healthcare regulations, demanding that businesses offer health insurance to their employees. Well, you know what? That's a cost for employers, which means bottom line is that the employers have to raise the cost of their goods and services in order to pay for health insurance now for their employees, which is that good or bad for our economy? So depending on how you look at it. And the fear of future inflation. This is what happens a lot in the stock market. People get afraid that things are going to happen, and it affects their business decisions on how they do things. So that's where we're going to wrap up right there. Let's see. Yeah, we don't really need to go into a whole bunch of what's considered economic freedom. We'll talk a little bit more about that in some of the projects that we do. So take your notes. You'll be able to use those for your test. And thank you.